The Path to Authenticity is brought to you by Jana Miami. Founded by world-class mental health experts, Jana provides advanced care for difficult-to-treat conditions, including anxiety, medication-resistant depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Using state-of-the-art methods, Jana can help people recover from conditions when more traditional approaches can't. Dr. Antonello Bonci has assembled an expert team serving international clientele in a modern and resplendent Miami setting. If you or someone you love is suffering from depression, anxiety, OCD, or other mental health concerns, call Gia at 833-713-0828. You can learn more about Gia by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting giamiami.com.
Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are. If this is your first time here, thanks for checking it out. If not, thanks for coming back. I'm Tom Gentry, and this is The Path to Authenticity, episode 178 for March 29th, 2022. And I am moved. I'm an Indiana resident again. Last week was kind of crazy. And I'm just kind of still getting settled in, but pretty happy so far. I just was ripe for some kind of change in my life, and this seemed like the thing to do. So I'm excited. This episode features a conversation with a media professional named Jana Angel that I had a while back in episode 50. And Jana just started a podcast of her own called Too Tall to Handle. She's a tall girl, played professional volleyball, which she talks about. Anyway, here you go. Hope you enjoy it. Jana Angel. Welcome to the crib. Thank you for taking part in the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
I'm really excited to be here. This is actually my first my first podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping everything turns out okay. We're doing a Facebook Live at the same time, which is something I've never done. Not Facebook Live, but Instagram Live.
We're on the IG. We're IG Live over here.
IG. So Jana used to be my neighbor here in West Palm Beach. We lived in the same building, and she actually would dog sit for me sometimes and take care of Caesar, who was very happy to have her here right now. Right now he's distracted with his rawhide bone, but he's nonetheless is happy to have Aunt Jana back.
I don't think I've ever been greeted so warmly than by Caesar. He literally tried to jump up all 6 feet of me to say hi. He was so cute.
All 6 feet of you. Absolutely. So, usually I like to start by just having you tell the listeners what it is you do for a living, what a typical day in the life of Jana Angel looks like.
Hi, Caesar. He's like, doesn't anybody want to know about my life? He's licking my microphone.
Yeah, he's going to be part of this episode.
He's going to be part of it.
For those of you who are listening.
For both of us being dog people, we knew there was going to be an animal element to this episode.
This is not his first appearance on the podcast, believe it or not.
So really a day in the life for me can vary so much because it depends on if I am on location and we're shooting with a partner, if we're going to an event, or maybe it's just an office day. But, this year I was one of those New Year's resolution people, and I've started all my mornings off with a run. I'm not a person who likes running, despite the fact that I spent years in professional athletics. It's just never something I've liked doing, but I do kind of like the mental discipline of it. Mm-hmm. Knowing that if I go every day, it's something that I get up and do. It's something I get ready for. And it just kind of starts my day off right. A lot of times my business partner, Liz Plummer, will go with me, and, it's just a time for us to kind of clear our brains, and we get new ideas and, get inspired and get outside. We live in West Palm Beach, which is such a beautiful area. And sometimes you just get tied to your desk, or you get, tied to doing whatever you're doing, and you kind of forget that there's a whole beautiful world out there that you can enjoy. So, we like to start our day off with something that's physical, even if we're on location. We'll take our running shoes with us and just go and experience wherever we are. A lot of times when we are on location, we get up and we, arrive on set early so that we can meet our partners. And it's always fun meeting people who have, been part of our lives for months and months. And we finally get to put a name with the face and meet them and see their facilities or see their product in action or whatever the theme of that day is. And, then we just get to work. We always travel, the Three Musketeers. That's, myself, Liz Plummer, and our videographer, James Desier. And we have, I think, we hit 10 states in the first month this year.
Wow.
I mean, we were everywhere. So this time has been a career change for me. So my day in the life in 2019 is very, very different than my day in the life of 2020. But it's kind of my dream day in the life. I'm hosting, I'm working in digital media and digital broadcasting and storytelling, a lot like you, Tom, just really finally getting to do exactly what I've felt like I wanted to do for a while.
So tell me about your company.
So our company is Electric Productions, and we are a full service media production company. We have 2 shows under our umbrella, Trending Today and Living Local. So Trending Today was developed by my business partner, Elizabeth Plummer, in 2013. And it was really developed to showcase businesses, in a fun,
yeah, we're having
big old
lots
train
of
going by.
sirens
We're having all sorts of sounds. It's going to be like name that sound.
That's okay.
So she developed that to really give businesses a different platform besides advertising to showcase what they do. So taking your business and your message and your brand and putting it into a show. And now we've created Living Local in the same way. There are so many opportunities out there to advertise and to spend money in advertising. Why wouldn't you spend that money to make your brand come to life in video? A lot of people spend an immense amount of money on video production and things like that, and it never actually gets seen by a wide audience. And so that's why we partner with Fox. We partner with Fox Business, to air our shows, because that gives a real wide range for those businesses, those entrepreneurs, those artists, anybody who really has a message for their brand and is passionate enough to share it with everybody is somebody that we're interested in working with. We have worked with people who are mixologists. We have worked with people who are artists. We just did Art Basel. We did Palm Beach Food and Wine. We've done some really, really phenomenal events that have made.
You were at the Honda Classic.
Yeah, we were at Honda Classic, and it just makes you excited, about the surroundings that you have the opportunity to enjoy.
Well, and it gives you an opportunity to really kind of immerse yourself in the culture. It really does. I don't think I was ever so involved in the community as I am now. And there are so many different pockets of socialization. Bloggers and influencers are creating a lot more networking opportunities. I think at first it was a lot of meet and greet events, and now it's, hey, how can you, really use your social medias as a commodity? How can you monetize that? A lot of empowerment between young entrepreneurs, especially, between female entrepreneurs. There's a lot of support here for that. But things like Young Palm Beach Chamber and,
business owners that are looking to a younger generation to say, hey, how can we help you be successful? And so the show has allowed us to tap into a lot of different groups who are all looking for support. They all want to get their message out there. And our show serves as that vehicle to actually spread that message.
Awesome. So he is crying and crying.
Sorry, commercial break for puppy pets.
So,
sponsored by Topo Chico.
Now you talked about, yeah, that's my dream. One of my dream sponsors is Topo Chico. It's actually, I have reached out to them, but I haven't gotten anywhere with it yet. I think
they're so
they
great.
do a lot of on location stuff. So I think if it gets to the point where if I have an event, maybe I can get them to provide the cold beverages.
Hey, you know what? We'll have a living local event.
All right.
And we will just go live from the living local event. We'll do it at our next watch party.
Okay.
We're going to be having a watch party for our season snapshot, which will go through, philanthropic events that we've attended. It'll have the Honda Classic, events for modern luxury. We'll have all sorts of stuff in there. So maybe we'll see if Topo Chico wants to come in there and cheers with us. What do you think, Cece?
So,
what do you think?
You mentioned that your life this year is a lot different than last year and you're living the way you want to be living, which is something I've talked a lot about on this podcast, because I know for me, it hit me like maybe 6 or 8, maybe even 10 years ago that, I'm relatively happy professionally. I'm fulfilled in certain ways, but am I really doing what I want to be doing with my time? And I don't think enough of us really think about that. And I think a lot of people are just kind of, we kind of just coast through life sort of unfulfilled because we're not spending our time the way we want to spend our time. And so I've tried to be really intentional about that. And this podcast is part of that,
And again, I think that's kind of like when we were talking before we started about people being self-conscious about their voice. It's scary as hell to look at really what your passion is and say, hey, can I pay the rent doing this? Hey, am I going to be able to retire if I'm doing this? That's not an easy question for anybody to ask themselves and really act on it. I mean, I'm very lucky that I was in a position where, at the end of the day, if I'm out on the streets, like it's just me, like I don't have children, I don't have necessarily those same responsibilities as a lot of people would have. But I knew at the end of the day, as long as I can eat and my dogs can eat, that I was going to be okay. And I was in a fantastic job before with a really great company, but I was just kind of getting bogged down in things that just weren't exactly what I wanted to do. And when I retired from pro volleyball, I came back to the US because I wanted to learn how to produce and I wanted to be a great host. I wanted to be somebody who, when somebody turned on their TV or turned on their phone or whatever, and they heard me, they felt like it was a friend just coming to visit and tell them all the good stuff that's going on and tell them where they should be hanging out and, what's coming up next. And I just wanted to be like that go-to gal that had the scoop on everything. I really veered away from news specifically per se, because it just didn't necessarily match my personality. I enjoy life. I enjoy having fun. I enjoy making people happy. And so that kind of lifestyle and entertainment and storytelling really spoke to me. But really in 2019, I just told myself, I said, I really want to be doing exactly what I want to do by, when I'm 30. And so before I turned 31, I had completely switched careers and, I had moved and I just, did everything you probably shouldn't do all at one time. I basically just like flipped my whole life pancake over at one time because, why the hell not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the question that I began to ask myself a couple of years ago is, if I'm not going to do this now, when am I going to do it?
Exactly.
And the stars are never going to all just align.
Right. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. That's something my dad always said. He was like, don't ever wait for the perfect scenario. Whether that's to, don't wait for the perfect scenario to have kids or to get married or to switch jobs or to do this, because there's always going to be I'm waiting on this. Oh, well, this has to come in. Like there's always going to be 100 reasons why life can talk you out of doing exactly what you want to do. And so can everybody else, because everyone's going to have an opinion. The second you start to voice whatever it is you want to do, somebody's going to have something to say about it. And the more you share that with people, the more people are going to have to say about it. And, sometimes opinions are kind of like butts. Everyone's got one, but a lot of them stink.
Well, one of the things I've learned over the years, I guess, as I've matured is,
is that what we're supposed to be doing? Maturing? Whoops.
Well, I mean, professionally, those ambitions that I have that I may have shared with someone before who wouldn't be supportive, I don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. I only go to people who I know have my back when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I don't need it. There are always going to be doubters.
Right.
And we're making a choice when we allow that into our lives. Mm-hmm. We really are. And it doesn't help. It takes up space. We got to move that out to make room for the good stuff and the positive people who are going to say, yes, you're capable. You can do this. And how can I help?
Right. And so much of your life is going to be predicated on those people that you spend a lot of your time with. So if you have those people who aren't pushing forward and, who are kind of okay with being where they are, that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they might not be the people who are going to push you outside of your comfort zone, and they're not going to push you to do what you want to do. I'm very lucky that I've had people who were great positive reinforcement for me, who were helpful to me, who said, you can absolutely do this and you'd be wonderful at it. Because sometimes you might think you're going to be good at something, and if you don't have that positive reinforcement, it's easy to second guess yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think I was very fortunate to have people who were encouraging around me, who said, yes, you would be great at broadcasting. You'd be great at delivering that message. And I always hope that I can be that for other people, if they just need a sounding board. And it's not up to me to decide whether that's a good or bad decision for you. Is this what you want to do? Mm-hmm. Are you passionate about this in your life? If you say, Jana, I want to go and be the best underwater basket weaver you've ever seen. And I'm like, all right, well, first let's go get some baskets and start practicing with a snorkel. It's just, you want to surround yourself with those people who are going to push you to take small steps to do exactly what it is you want to do. And I don't say ever that you can be whatever you want, because that's a gross over exaggeration that unfortunately we've kind of tossed on kids for years and years, because, Caesar's not going to be the number one NBA basketball player because he's a dog, like sometimes, our physical, capabilities, and things like that are not going to necessarily allow us to be exactly what we want to be. But do you want to work in sports? We can get you a job in the NBA. Right. Like, let's look at how we can do that.
Well, that's something that, as a kid, I loved baseball, and I, one of the few real regrets I have in life is stopping when I did, in the middle of high school. And it was because I became convinced, there's no way I can ever do this professionally. It just won't happen. But I didn't have the wisdom then to know, well, if I pursued it, I could have ended up being a coach. I could have been a groundskeeper at a freaking major league ballpark.
Or you could have played minor leagues, or you could have played majors. But that's the thing, is like, you just don't know until you know.
Well, but also the path, if we take it, it will lead us to where we're supposed to be. It will, whether it's where we think it is or not. And, my boy, who is a little actor, and
big actor now.
Yeah,
he was little when I met him.
Yeah, he is. He's tall
big
now. He's not quite as tall as you, but he's getting there. We were talking about what he wants to do with his life recently, and I've been pretty big on just supporting him, whatever he wants to do, and so and choosing what high school to go to and all that stuff. He tried out for Dreyfus and should find out next week the local school of the arts here. But he said, I said, so do you want to act on Broadway? Is that what you want to do? And he said, my goal is to be on Broadway, and I thought, he said, 'cause maybe I won't be able to act on Broadway, but I want to work on Broadway. I was like, wow, how smart.
Yeah.
For a 13-year-old kid.
So much smarter than we were, for sure.
Smarter than me.
So much smarter than we were.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but he's on the right track. You know, and one of the things that I tell young guys who I work with, you know, if you do something you like, you're going to find your people, even if it's working at Guitar Center,
right?
Or, you know, Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you're involved in something you like, it may not be the end all be all job, but it'll lead you to the next job. Because every job I've ever had always led to the next job, right?
Yeah. Everything I've had, has led me here, you know, and I have had all sorts of jobs, and I'm sure you have too. And I always think that's funny, you know, when you kind of get to where you really wanted to go and you start comparing how you got here, jobs with people. It's always really interesting to hear, you know, the paths that brought people. The CEO of my former company, Uniters, was a phenomenal mentor for me. And he was a bartender for years and ran a bar. And, my other mentor, Tom Forrest, who, you know, is everything e-commerce, just a really phenomenal, smart human being. But he worked in TV and, worked on the Jenny Jones show. And, you know, there's just really interesting paths that lead people to where they are and where they're meant to be. And they don't necessarily all have to make sense. But what I encourage people to do that, you know, like you said, I wish maybe I would have done earlier, is just whatever I'm doing it with intention. You know, this is the path to authenticity. And I think part of being authentic is whatever you're doing, do it with some sort of intention. So even if that intention is waking up on time with the intention to get dressed and go outside and get on your run, or that intention when you were cooking is to execute a recipe. But I think a lot of things I did, you know, growing up were, you know, somebody told me I was supposed to be doing it. I assumed I was supposed to be doing it. You know, I'm following, or, you know, as many times as I was told is, you know, you're a smart, young, independent woman. A lot of times I was kind of following whatever we're supposed to be doing. You know, right. I'm just trying to be the best at doing whatever I'm doing. But in doing that, be the best what? You know, be the best volleyball player, be the best sister, be the best daughter, be the best what? When at the end of the day, all I really needed to do is, what intent am I going to have with my day to be 100% of the best Jana that I can be? I had a coach that always said, I'll only expect 100% of who you are that day, because sometimes we are sick, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we have extra energy and we can be 110%, and sometimes we're just not. So instead of beating yourself up when you're not 100% every single day, expect yourself to fulfill that 100% of whoever you are that day. And I always thought that was really, really great. You know, just be 100%.
I got that from yoga.
Yeah. Be 100% of who you are that day.
Because, you know, you show up on the mat, you know, one day you might be really flexible and be able to pull off some pose, and then the next day you just can't do it.
Yeah.
Your body is
yoga
just
used to infuriate me until somebody brought that to my attention, you know. But
it's all about accepting yourself, you know.
And I thought that was so much crap when I first started yoga, you know, because of course I'm seeing, you know, people beside me and they're, you know, twisted up, like, you know, just all in pretzels. And I'm just like, okay, you know, this and how we stretched in volleyball. And the teacher could tell I'm trying to beat the people on either side of me. And she's like, stop looking over there, look over here. And I'm like, then how am I supposed to know what everybody else is doing? And she's like, that doesn't matter. You know, like I needed to do yoga in a box. But at the end of the day, it matters, but it doesn't at the same time. You know, you have to be aware of your competition. You have to know what other people are doing. I completely understand that. But it's just like when we started this show, you know, all of a sudden we were like, does everyone and their mom have a show with a vibe of kind of what we're going for? And we're like, you know what? If everybody does, go right ahead, because we know what we're producing. We know what we're creating. We know how much work we put into it. And that's okay. And it's okay if you do have great competition. You know, other people who are in the same vein of us as us have become some of our best collaborators. You know, it's just kind of interesting is when you really focus your intention on what you're doing and what's going to make you the best, all that other stuff just kind of naturally falls away. You're not telling yourself every day not to worry about it. It just kind of floats away.
Well, and in our culture, we're so good at looking at things from a viewpoint of scarcity. Like there's not enough. Like can only be one. When the truth is like there's enough of everything.
Yes.
There really is.
There are billions of people with billions of opinions. You know, it's just there's plenty of everything. And, you know, the things that we worry about, there not being enough of, there's plenty of, and the things that we don't worry about enough of, unfortunately, are the things that are scarce. You know, but double taps and likes and stuff like that, you know, it's easy to get swept up in. Unfortunately, you know, that's a lot in my media realm. A lot of people will, first thing they'll do is look at my Instagram page or, you know, my Twitter or whatever and equate whatever number that is to my worth on this planet.
Right.
And, you know, at first that was maddening. But now it just kind of is what it is. And we keep producing the same content that we know is going to be great. And I post what I want. And most of it's pictures of my dogs and, you know.
Well, you know, I think I'm lucky that I'm at an age where, you know, I didn't get on Facebook until years after it was available to me. And it's really like the idea that someone would get like a boost of self-esteem from a whole bunch of likes is a little bizarre to me. Like, I mean, I get it. I mean, I do get it. Like, if I do a post and I get more likes than usual, I do experience some, you know, joy from that.
Like, ooh, fire post. Yes.
But I'm not at I need to post this picture and, how many likes I get is going to determine anything about my mood that day. Or, you know, it just is not going to happen. And I'm kind of glad that I'm a little bit older and that I didn't have to deal with all. And also just, I think about, you know, kids like my son and just,
well, yeah, you can't be a kid.
Privacy
you can't be a kid. You have to be a brand, you know? I mean, because, you know, you can't just be a kid anymore. And I think I certainly feel for parents who have to make that decision on, you know, do we let them have social? Do we monitor it? If so, what do we do? You know, because there's so many kids that are so extremely successful on social media, you know, with videos, opening toys or playing with toys or, you know, anything for that matter. But making that decision, do I let my kids be social? Do I not? I'm very thankful that I'm not a parent because that's a tough choice. But it really is like you as a kid.
I think it's unrealistic to avoid it.
You have to be a brand. Like, well, what's your brand? And you're like, I don't know. I'm 5. I don't know. What is my brand? Like fan of Play-Doh. I don't know.
Right.
And really that's kind of what these kids are developing. It's kind of like an early onset of like the child actor thing is that's moved to little baby generations.
It has. Yeah. Media is different, which, you know, I thought of, you know, cause I got into journalism in high school and after high school when, you know, I think, the journalism department at my high school had a Mac and was like, it was the only Macintosh. Everything else, all the PCs were DOS. People had email but we were just beginning to lay out newspaper pages on a Mac. Before that, like it was like, cutting and typesetting and I mean like it was real, like using X-Acto knives and all that kind of stuff.
Oh God.
So I came from that and was just as media was getting ready to turn the corner into
do you respect like modern day journalists? Because I respect somebody who had to go and handwrite their shit. To me, that's mad respect. Is there ever like a back and forth?
You know, it's just different because the news cycle is just, there was a news cycle when I was doing it. There was a news cycle. Now there's not. I mean, it's just constant. I mean, if you follow politics, I mean, the New York Times is sporadically throughout the day releasing stories at 8 or 10 o'clock at night.
Well, because now you just got to be first.
Right.
If you're not first, you're last. It's like Ricky Bobby his saying finally came to fruition. If you're not first, you're last.
Right. Well, and it's like, before, like there was a morning paper and there was the evening news and, you know, CNN. I graduated from high school in 91 and, turned 18 while we were in Iraq for the first time and watched the emergence of Wolf Blitzer on CNN doing live shots of this war happening. And that had never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had ever really, not around the clock. I mean, people did stuff obviously on location in Vietnam and all that, but this was around the clock. Like you could watch the war live on TV.
Right. And now we expect everything to be live.
Right. And I don't think, so I think being a journalist is different now. So I don't necessarily look at, I had to do it this way and you don't. But what I do think is that the world was probably a better place when we had time to think and digest news, digest stories, and instead of being, sometimes I feel like we're cats with the flashlight of every little headline on the crawl on CNN or MSNBC. It's like we're not standing back and looking at the whole picture. We're following every little headline. And, that doesn't really bode well for us as a culture. I don't think. I think we're constantly distracted, which goes along with, the whole social media thing, because it also serves to do that. I'm a big music guy, and, one of my favorite records is, it's called The Suburbs. It's by a band called Arcade Fire. Have you heard of Arcade Fire?
I was like, I have, yeah.
But it's a concept record, and it's all about them growing up. And they're early 30s, but growing up in the suburbs. And they might be a little older than that. But like there's a song on there called We Used to Wait. And it talks about how, we used to write letters. We used to sign our name. Used to wait for the mail.
Oh, yeah. I have like cursive as a skill. And
like,
if I need to write code, I'm writing it in cursive.
Well, I remember call waiting, was a thing that not everybody had. And you'd get a busy signal when you called somebody. I'll call them back later. Or, when people would answer the phone. And now that's one thing about.
Well, no one wants to answer the phone. It's always a telemarketer.
Well, yeah.
Somebody's telling you
there's
something.
That, yeah. But a lot of people are so, and I text a lot too, but a lot of people, it's like all they want to do. They don't want to. And I think like one of the things I love about this podcast is, it's a real conversation.
Yeah.
That takes time and, it's an investment. And the people who listen, like, it's what they want, or else they wouldn't invest the time to do it. And I think we need more stuff like this that is more than just an SMS text message and the thing about that drives me crazy is there's so much that can get lost. I mean, there are so many inferences we make when we read a text message. And there are times when I've gotten a text and I'll read it and I'll think, well, why did this person say that? Or why are they asking this question? And I'll be furious.
Oh, right. Yep.
And then I'll go back to reply and be like, wait, let me read that again. And I'll read it again and it won't be anything like I thought what I read the first time. It's something completely different, but it's just the brevity of it. Just, it leaves us, it's not great. It's like the worst form of communication ever.
It kind of is because, if you took the time to send me a text or whatever and you typed out a sentence because especially I feel like in dating, it's all about like, nobody's blurb can be bigger than the last text or whatever that you sent. You sit there and you take the time to write something out and somebody just replies back, okay. No, boom, no. Yeah. So,
well, there's okay. And then there's K, which is,
that's just rude. That's, I'm coming over to your house and I'm going to punch you.
Yeah.
That's no. But it's so funny because to us, that comes off so rude. And on the other end, somebody is probably just busy.
Right.
And they're like, K.
Well, but then also, so first of all,
if I say
okay,
K, it's because I'm like, K, I'm done with you.
But it's all such a, crazy mental masturbation because, the word okay is, a brief form of all right or whatever.
Yeah. But if I said to you, I was like, okay, you'd be totally fine with that. If I text you, okay, that's what you hear is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's
but
the
if I
thing.
text you, okay, emoji.
Yeah. Well, And then there are emojis. It's like communication has just changed so much. But I think your decision to not go with news, I mean, people my age don't watch the news, really. Most people my age don't watch the news, I don't think. People your age, definitely. That's not how they consume news. On television, not really.
No, we consume it through Twitter.
Right.
I would say news is mostly through Twitter.
So what you chose to do was to be relevant.
Well, thank you. That's really good to hear. I want to be the fun stuff. I know that sounds maybe like an easy way out. Come here, Caesar.
So just so everybody knows, this whimpering that's going on is because he loves Jana, and right now he's reaching up to me and licking me and stuff. He just wants attention.
Cheesies.
We're not torturing him or anything like that. He's like,
excuse me, nobody's pet me in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Come here, Bubby. Come here.
Yeah.
Hey, Bubby.
So, so you want to do fun stuff?
I do. And it's not necessarily like flippant stuff. What I'd really love to do is, really become a great storyteller. Right now I do a lot of, we do events and we do kind of short spurts at places. And what I really want that to develop into is, deeper profiles on the events that we're doing, on the people that we're doing. We want to really expand that so that we have time for that storytelling. Maybe not like a 60-minute Stark sit down, but I want to be able to go with people to their hometowns and let them show me around. And hey, this is why I make the dishes that I do in my restaurant, or this is why I play the music that I play. This is the first venue that I've ever played. And one day I want us to be big enough to encompass that.
So your hometown is?
My hometown is Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Rock Hill, South Carolina. And you mentioned that you played professional volleyball in France, right?
I did, yes.
And then, so what was your childhood like?
It was full of sports. My dad was a basketball player and a multi-sport athlete in high school, but he played basketball in college and then played professionally overseas, which I think is why I had such a bug to travel. And, my mom played, softball. She was a cheerleader. She actually also played football. She took me to football camp, actually. I won like a John Casey football camp. I remember when I was little. And I got to go play at Panther Stadium, and I was the only girl in a camp of like 400 little middle school boys.
I bet you held your own though.
I did. I was so excited to go. And it was just so funny because all the boys are there with their dads, and I show up with my mom, and it was just great. But it was full of sports games and ballet recitals and very patient parents who were willing to haul 3 girls back and forth to volleyball, basketball, track, tap, ballet, jazz, lyrical, horseback riding, just.
You were busy.
We were busy. I didn't know that other kids didn't grow up with a paper calendar on their fridge with highlighted schedules.
Yeah.
My dad built his own business with his father, and he was very busy, creating a great life for us. And my mom was head of every committee. I just remember her always planning parties, planning events, and it wasn't just like, hey, let's have some balloons and streamers. To this day, I can't put peanuts in a bowl without looking for a doily, or we got to have greenery, or we got to have sliced berries. There's just,
I've been to a party of yours. You put on some pretty good. I remember the toga party.
Oh yeah. You came to the toga party.
The toga party.
That was great.
Caesar made an appearance.
Caesar
at the toga
came to the toga party.
And there's a great Instagram photo from that.
That was pretty fantastic.
Feed. Yeah. So, then from when did you leave home and where'd you go? And
so I left to go to NC State when I was, right after I graduated high school. I guess I was 17 or 18 then, and was beyond excited because I was coming from Rock Hill, and everybody from my town had really kind of gone to USC or to Clemson. So I was really venturing off by myself, even though it was only 3 hours away, but it felt like the big city to me. And Raleigh was a phenomenal place to go to school. And I I remember my volleyball team was 18 people that year. I was a freshman on a volleyball team of 18 people. Now, mind you, you only need 6 on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a huge team, and it was a really competitive year, and it was a tough year. And, but I just remember not wanting to trade it for anything because I really felt like I was accomplishing something. It was a bit of a rocky start. I literally knocked myself out on the first day of training. I remember I slipped in someone else's sweat and knocked myself out, completely out on the floor. And I woke up in the training room. It was like, where am I? So, not the most graceful.
Did you guys
start
play in
that
that
I wanted to make.
Gymnasium there? What's the name of that gymnasium?
We played in Reynolds.
Is that where the basketball?
They used to. So now they have a much bigger stadium, but we always played in Reynolds Coliseum, and it was kind of great because it was where we practiced, and that was really our home. And I remember it didn't have air conditioning, and but neither did Penn State. I don't know if they have air conditioning now or not, but for years, Penn State never had air conditioning, and they were one of the best teams in the country. And so our coach would always say, if Penn State doesn't need air conditioning, neither do you. So we certainly never complained about the air conditioning, but you would just go through, 3 practice jerseys, just sweating. Well,
I saw the Avett brothers there one year on New Year's Eve at that arena where NC State basketball plays. Maybe it's Reynolds. I can't remember the name.
They used to until they built the bigger stadium.
Bridgestone? Is it? I want to. Maybe it's Bridgestone.
I was like, it's changed names a couple times. But Reynolds is like the old school stadium.
But it was,
and now
great.
It's brand new. Now it's brand new. They have like a jumbotron in there. They have air conditioning. They redid all of the seats and everything. So now Reynolds is brand spanking new.
No, but the Avett brothers in the Carolinas, man, to see them around home on New Year's Eve, it was such a great. And, that to me is like the best way to spend New Year's at a concert. It's a lot of fun. But anyway, so then after college, what?
So after
That's
college,
when you went to France?
After college, I attempted to get into media broadcasting, and the issue that I found was that I had no I really had no portfolio. I had a passion, but I had no portfolio. And so passion wasn't getting me too far. And was, attempting to get, jobs and gigs and things like that. And everyone was just like, well, where's your reel? Where's your reel? And I was like, I don't know. You want to see some game film of me playing volleyball? I got plenty of game tape. And I had plenty of interviews of me talking to somebody else, but, really none on the other side of the mic. And so I was studying abroad in Spain to finish out my senior year, living just you want to talk about living your best life. Literally living your best life. I mean, I think all I ate were carbs and cheese. It was just fantastic. I don't know if I drank water the whole time I was there because sangria was cheaper. There was just, the music was fantastic. Nightlife was so fun, and I'd already taken all the classes I needed to take. So as long as my butt was in the seat, that's really all I had to do. And, it was just really wonderful, and learned the language really well, and, was able to communicate with anybody I wanted to. And then, I started playing a little bit with the university team in Valencia, and there were some scouts, I guess, that came to visit and watch a few of the games, and reached out to me about playing volleyball professionally. And I really hadn't thought about it because I was really burnt out once I entered my senior year and had finished my season. It was a great accomplishment, and I was so thankful, and that especially for, my scholarship and things like that. But I was really burnt out. I was like, I don't want to see spandex. I don't want to see a volleyball. I'm good. I did what I needed to do. I'm good. And it really just kind of ignited my love for playing again. So I originally was going to play in Spain, but they really experienced a heavy economic downturn, and there just wasn't money to pay players, much less were they going to pay female players at that time, unfortunately. And so I took a job in France and went to my graduation. And then a couple weeks later, jumped on a plane, went to France, did not speak the language, but learned it in about a year. And, really loved Paris, but boy, was it cold. And it is really hard to take a girl from South Carolina to somewhere where she gets snowed into her apartment. I think I got snowed in my apartment 4 times that year. And so I was like, all right, this has been grand, but I've got to go somewhere warmer. So I went further south and then spent the rest of my career in Toulouse and then Bordeaux. So I played for 2 different teams for 2 years each there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. And honestly, I really got back into media again because when I was in Bordeaux, we had this brand new stadium that we were really excited to promote and, get more bodies in. And I decided, I'll do a video. And so I started doing this series that I called La Femme Derrière le Maillot, which was the woman behind the jersey. And I called it, Bonjour Birdies TV. So we had just like this little channel on YouTube. I mean, looking back at it now, I'm like, oh God, the production quality on that. But it's because it was me with an iPhone and a tripod and iMovie, which is, the extent of what I knew at that time. And I did a tour of our Coliseum and I would do little stand-ups in there and I would interview my teammates, just so people could get to know, who that woman is on the court, cause a lot of times, especially when you're losing, people lose all sense of humanity and they just start calling you every name in the book. And some part of me was like, maybe if people know that when they're screaming at number 13, they're actually screaming at someone's mom and their kid is in the stands, they're screaming at a wife and their husband is here. They're screaming at a teacher who teaches children with special needs. They were, screaming at just all these women that had all these varied professions. And, it was just, remember that athlete is not just a jersey running up and down that floor. That is a human, that is a person, and it's just kind of weird because it's something that people bet on, that people pull for and this, that, and the other, like they do with racing and horses and animals. And it just sometimes seems odd, when people get so hyper emotional about this game that we are playing. And I always like to remind people that player, that number is a person, and they have good and bad days just like you. Unfortunately, instead of, you who have, a few people who depend on you and people who might not like it if you're having a bad day, they have all of America in multiple countries mad if they lose and they have a bad day. If they miss a shot, it's going to be in every media publication known to man. You miss a shot on your off day, nobody knows, but it's just, I always like to encourage people to just remember that.
Well, it goes back to telling the story. You're a storyteller.
Athletics are something I can get on a soapbox for hours. That'd be a whole other podcast. That'd be part 2.
Yeah. Well, so man, just listening to you and seeing the smile on your face as you talk about, you've had a pretty great life already.
I am beyond blessed. I really, really have.
So then if you had to go back and talk to that younger self at whatever age when, I'm sure there was a time that was more difficult than others for you, when would that have been? And what would you say to her knowing what you know now?
I would say even if I could go back like 5 years or something like that, but really if I could go back to my younger self, I would first of all just say, balls up, just it's okay if everyone's not happy. Everyone's not going to be happy. Everyone's not going to love your decision. I would say, listen to your parents and your grandmother, because no, your hair did not look good that color. No, bangs are not for you. And, and sometimes people really don't have the best intentions for you. I think, when I was younger, I assumed everyone was going to treat me the way that I would treat them and everyone would love me the way that I loved them. And that is unfortunate, but it is so untrue. And I was extremely trusting. I'm sure just like a lot of young people. And, I was quick to trust people and, a lot of times it would disappoint me and I'd let it really hurt my feelings. And I would just really take that in instead of, just kind of being like, well, you know what? They're not going to play the game the way it needs to be played. They're not going to be a good person, then to hell with them. It's just, I thought I needed to figure out a way for everyone to love me, to like me. And that's just not how it is. And, so I would tell my younger self just to kind of get over it, a lot of it, because I probably spent a lot of my younger life with hurt feelings, worried about, what people thought, or, what people, weren't thinking about me. And I think too, what I said earlier about intention, just really having an intention for everything I was doing, and not being afraid to fail. Because when I was younger, I was terrified of failure, and you were going to fail all the time. It just goes back to, there's going to be somebody who doesn't like it. There's going to be somebody who thinks whatever you did was hot garbage when you just think it's the best thing ever. And that is fine. And that is fine. There's going to be somebody who hated your outfit when you thought you looked great. There's going to be somebody who, there's just always going to be that. And that's what's so great about, living in the US, is that that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm also entitled not to care. Right. So I think that's what I would tell my younger self. Even if I could just go remind myself every year, I think that would be great. But, I'm proud of my younger self that I was always a really good friend to anybody that needed it. Cause I think that's something that you have a lot of control over. You don't have a lot of control over what happens to you, but you have control over your reaction. So even though I kind of, in retrospect, wish I would have told a few people to, go fly a kite, those people can never say that I was unkind to them. And those people can never say that, I was the nasty one or whatever. So I just, not that I want people to, think, oh, Jana Angel is so great, but, I do want to make it hard for him to say something bad. If you're going to criticize me and just say that you don't like what I'm doing or how I do it or whatever, well, what don't you like about it? Because it's not to your liking or because it's not to your taste. It's not going to be because it was wrong. It's not going to be because I hurt somebody. I might hurt their feelings, when I tell them to go fly a kite, because I don't have much of a problem doing that anymore. But I would just always encourage your younger you, or even if it's just you today, to remember that everyone's got something going on and you don't always know what it is.
That's an important one.
I lived a very great, healthy childhood that I feel very, very lucky and blessed to have had. Especially now that I'm older and I understand a lot more of the struggles that people have had with mental health issues, people, who really do struggle with depression and anxiety. And that's something that they wake up and they feel heavy. So those are things that I'm now trying to work and understand, because it's something that I either never had time to deal with because I was busy, or, it wasn't something that existed in my headspace. And I feel very fortunate for that, because it's something that now I'm much more aware of. And so no matter what the situation is, I always just try to look at it from as many angles as I can before I react.
Well, this has been great. And I don't know if you just heard a second ago, but he dropped his bone on the mic stand.
Oh no, we dropped our
That
bone.
was that noise. But it's been great having you here. And of course, Caesar's so happy, his tail's wagging like crazy. We stayed on Instagram Live for a long time until my phone started to die.
I know. I think we got kicked off of IG.
Yeah, maybe 20 minutes ago. But
too much fire for the gram.
Yeah. But anyway, I really appreciate you coming. This has been a blast.
Well, I just loved being here.
Good.
Being
Well,
back
we'll
in the
have
old
to get you
stomping
come
grounds
back.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do part 2 for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Caesar says bye.
All right, there you go. Another episode in the books. Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the show and this episode's guest at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Every little bit helps. I want to thank the band Punk Rock Opera, whose music you hear throughout the show. Their songs are used with permission from the artist and under a Creative Commons license. If you're so inclined, check out the Patreon community. As soon as I do these interviews, I upload them to Patreon, where the content is only available to patrons, and for just a couple bucks a month. I usually post audio content, their exclusive audio content, probably 8 times a month, if not more. And as these new episodes are released, as soon as they're done, they're available to patrons. So sometimes that might be 2 weeks before an episode is released, or even longer. Usually it's a few days. Anyway, if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. So thanks again for investing your time. It's a big deal to me. Thank you for supporting me and supporting the show. I hope you keep coming back. Be nice.
That's our story. I hope you enjoyed the punk rock opera. We have one last piece of music for you. It goes like this.
Okay, go.
Generation, self-made bands. We cut our teeth with bloody hands. The rage has instilled in us. Can feed a crowd, give them a rush. Thank you. And good night.